Every time I close my eyes, I see in front of me.
Let's embark on a journey of knowledge and discovery. Let's learn from the extraordinary lives of the greatest in the art of living. The art of living.
Join the conversation with Dr. Wael Harasi and Dr. Lamia Al-Haj.
Every day.
From Sunday to Thursday.
2:40 to 3:40 p.m.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Dear listeners, I salute you with the salutation of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. Welcome back to your show, The Art of Living. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and are ready for a series of great topics this week. Wael and myself here in the studio are ready for discussion, aren't we, Wael?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So live from the studio today, both myself, Lamia Al-Haj,
and Wael Harasi.
would like to remind you that our lines are open throughout the show and we look forward to hearing from you. So please do call us on 24602058.
That's 24602058.
We have a very interesting topic today. Wael, I think this topic that we're going to discuss today is related to everybody. So it's not targeted to a specific group. What we're talking about is related to every individual. It's responsibility
and discipline. It is something that was actually very dear to Sheikh Khalfan, may Allah rest his soul and have mercy on him. It is something that we all feel the need to discuss. Mm-hmm. It's a problem that we see increasing day by day, actually.
Yeah.
You are a lecturer at the university.
Yes, I am.
And how would you rate the graduates or the freshers at the university year after year?
Well, first I'm going to generalize and then I'm going to take it back a little bit. But
okay.
In general, I definitely see an increasing trend of lack of responsibility.
Lack of responsibility,
whether it be the freshers or even the graduating students. And it's interesting to understand why that is. What is happening that they don't sense anymore that sense of responsibility. And I was discussing with you about, or I think I was discussing at home with my husband about taking attendance, for example, for lectures. I would think that a university students doesn't have to be, reminded to have to come to class and you have to register and you have to sign your name down. As a university student, you don't really need to be, policed over. But because of this lack of responsibility, if we actually don't pass on the attendance sheet, so there's a trend that goes, oh, Dr. Lemmy doesn't pass on, which I do actually. If I don't pass on the attendance sheet, they'll be like, oh, she doesn't, so maybe we don't have to show up for the lecture.
Yeah, that sort of trend also continues after they graduate, and we're not talking specifically about SQU graduates, no, but it's a general trend in Oman. As soon as they enter the corporate environment as well, we see the laid back, attitude. So sometimes we might say that it is too late to fix everyone. Mm-hmm. However, what we want to discuss today is how can we fix it very early.
Before I go back, because I wanted to make sure that I don't actually overgeneralize, because they are students who are very hardworking, who are very responsible, who show up even before time and are there before the lecturer. But generally speaking, it's the trend inside the university, outside the university, in the streets. It's just a sense of lack of responsibility. People stay laid back and wait for others to do things for them.
Yes.
Or take control over their lives.
Which is totally, opposite how we were raised. During our days. I remember even when we went to university in the UK, we were looking for the toughest university. We would actually ask, what is the toughest university? I would like to be there.
Yeah. Were you disciplined?
And yes, and at later years, when the embassy used to send students to me, fresh students, the question I would get, what is the easiest subject I could register for? I just want to pass without studying. So how can we resolve the issue of responsibility and encourage discipline from a very young age?
This is the best time to introduce our speaker today. So today in our studio we have Manisha. Manisha is the mother and educator for her 3 children. She has been raised and brought up in New York City. She worked as a designer for 15 years. Which actually drew my attention very much. She moved with her family to San Diego, California. She left her career and decided to be a full-time educator and disciplinarian to her children. She began learning how to teach children in a positive way at the age of just 2 years old. She realized how important this was for the future and their own personal development. She moved later on with her family to Africa and lived there for 3 years, where she volunteered at local orphanages and provided positive spirits to the children. A humanitarian at heart and continuing efforts of spreading the positive connection. In the studio today, we'd like to welcome you, Manisha. So welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. What a great opportunity for me to share the spirit and the topic of responsibility with Oman. This is a topic that has been very dear to my heart. I feel like it does, and it should start at such a young age. And the question is, what is responsibility for young children? And there are various responses I've always received from young children as well as parents. And, a few of the answers and responses I would get would pretty much be, well, responsibility to me is I'm just going to do what's right for me and not really worry about anybody else.
So dissociate from the society. It's just about me, centralized.
Exactly. I've heard from others say, well, to be responsible means to be mature and to do what you know is right and having the skills needed when you're mature. But then also to be mentally prepared. And this is where I feel like, I can introduce a few of the steps that I feel like are very important and advice that I give to parents and individuals when they ask me, well, what can I do at such a young age? And one of the biggest things that I feel like was important for me as a parent or a mother of 3 is get in tune to yourself, get in tune to you as a parent, and understand and know that as a parent, you have to want to make a change so that this child of yours or the children that you are working with can understand what it means to be responsible. And what I would say there is, okay, parents, if you really feel like you don't know where to start, step back and think about your routine. Think about the structure, the schedule you have or you may not have. And one of the biggest things, I think, is to recognize that you want to make that change and be persistent about it.
So when you say make that change, do you mean, it's a time to teach the child to be responsible? And when you speak about the schedule, look at your schedules. So
Right.
Is that so that it fits the child's schedule?
Right. And so what I would say there is, creating a schedule for both the parent and the child. I mean, some parents do a schedule on a chart that is strictly just for them and then one strictly just for the children. And how do you bring it together so that you as a parent are happy, but yet the child is happy and there's not all this chaos in your household? And there are many ways to do that. You can create those charts, but this is step number 1, I believe, is first having the parents be responsible, they themselves being responsible to take on that initiative so that you can teach your child
So
or
step
children.
number 1 is for the parents to realize that it's their responsibility to
Recognize
be
it.
responsible of their
Yes.
children's responsibility.
Yes,
I like that.
exactly.
You like that, Wael?
Exactly.
I like it.
And step number 2 for me would be, what would you do after you have created this chart as a parent? And are you ready to take on this new role as a parent? That second step for me would be to create a dialogue. Now, this can get very complicated, but in a nutshell, creating a dialogue with your child, whether it's independently, as a group, as a family, as a team, whatever it may be, how do you have this dialogue? And how do you take it from step 1, understanding what the parent wants and what the child does, and bringing this into a dialogue format? Well, you have to understand now that the schedule you've made, what is on the schedule that you've made that you feel like you need to explain to the child, okay, so this is what we are talking about as a family.
Maybe I'll just pause there for a second to clarify to the audience. When you speak about schedule, can you just explain the nature of the schedule? I mean, do you mean breaking down the days into hours and then filling that up with activities, or?
Yes, exactly. Actually, a combination of it. Creating a schedule that already exists for you as a parent and a schedule that you know that your child is on, whether a child is at a young age where they are toddlers and you may feed them, play with them, there's nap time and so forth, versus an older child which may have more on their schedule.
So each child would have a separate schedule according to their needs and requirements.
But at some point, bringing those schedules together so that the parent can facilitate and understand what needs to get done throughout the day and be responsible, and that's where the dialogue comes in.
So, Manisha, you have 3 children. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your children, and then we can ask you, and do you have different schedules for your 3 kids? Do you have?
Because I started this when they were pretty much around the age of two-ish, I started this 13 years ago, and I have 3 children. The eldest is 13 years old. For him, it was, first-time parents. So, for me, it was first-time parents. So I had everything laid out, literally, so I knew what I needed to do.
That was me as well.
However, the second child came into play, and things started changing, because now the dynamics were, as a parent, how do I handle the older child schedule along with the second child, and the third child came into play. So all of that, yes, I did start very young, and at this point my oldest is 13, my second is 11, and my third is 8. We no longer use the charts anymore because we feel comfortable where each one stands and what each one needs to do.
Excellent. So that means that along the line or along the pathway there comes a time where it becomes a spontaneous thing.
It becomes a habit. A habit. Habit might be somewhat of a negative word, but it really becomes a lifestyle, maybe. And a lifestyle that makes and creates more peace in the home, knowing that you're on these schedules. Now, give or take, we're all human. We all know that things are not going to go perfect. But this is where the continuing efforts of the persistence from the parent.
And what role do they play in deciding what goes into the schedule?
Well, depending on what you're referring to, for example, are we talking about dinner time? Are we talking about a morning routine? Are we talking about, I would break it down and say, where in the schedule, in the household, is there chaos? Where do I feel frustrated? Where do I feel like we need to discuss and work more? And in time, you will battle and sort of take charge with each topic or whatever chaos is going on in your household, and break it down and work at each one at a time.
You said battle. You're indicating that it's not an easy thing to do.
It is absolutely not an easy thing to do. I have been doing this for 13 years, and even till this day today, we all change as human beings.
And the rate of failures. So sorry to interrupt there, but this is important because the way we understand success is I believe that we are a little bit eluded. Yeah, that if we don't see success immediately, then we'll just stop. Yeah, when you say we battle, and it's a difficult one, how many times you think you have failed and you had to restart?
Many, many, many times, to the point where I would cry because I would have to always try to figure out another way or another practice session or another way of bringing in the dynamic of 3 children into a home where I have battled it. They have battled it. How do we come to terms with what works and what doesn't? And that is the beauty of having a family, is that there will be these trial and errors of a lifetime.
Yeah. So this is nice listening to Manisha, because then you parents shouldn't think of a family of being, that perfect family where there's no arguments and everything's perfect and everybody's doing their responsibility, waking on time, brushing their teeth, school, and at the same time. For me, it was like, what is that? Once in a blue moon. I mean, it's not realistic that happens every single day of your life for all the years of your life. So people need to understand that if it doesn't happen the way you want it at the beginning, don't give up, because it's not natural.
Absolutely.
And there are many ways to enforce such a schedule. Yeah, and you need to be clever and smart about it, because you could really stress yourself out and be angry and be mad at your children every time they disobey. And there is a funny way, be playful sometimes. Sometimes, for example, there is a rule that you can't come out of your rooms until you've at least brushed your teeth, washed your face. A shower, okay, yeah. I could turn a blind eye on that sometimes, but at least wash your face, brush your teeth.
But how long does it take to brush their teeth? Like, I have 2 kids. One does it quickly, the other one daydreams.
Well, to me, I don't go to the quality of that. But what I'm trying to say is, is don't come out until you do these 2 things. Definitely do not come and shake my hands in the morning, yeah, unless you've done those. So sometimes they would come and I would ask them. They would be, they've changed their clothes, trying to fool me. I said, I can see from your puffed eyes that you haven't washed your face. Is that true? I said, yes. Then go away, in a firm tone. Sometimes I would see that they're coming in their pajamas, and I would just hold my nose. You stink. Just be playful, and that's why you will not stress yourself.
And I absolutely right. We're all human, and we all know that these are all trials and tribulations of kids and growing up. I do believe that if I may, an example of what we do in our household is we have something called BBC. Now, we made it very playful when the children were younger, and what that basically means is everything you need to do in your bathroom. Finish your business, do what you need to do. Make your bed, and then breakfast.
Okay.
That means that the child, when they're younger, give or take, a child when they're a lot younger, you will have to be a lot more playful with them and get them to understand and do this sort of thing. But in time, with the habits created, our children are not allowed, well, I shouldn't say not allowed, it's a little harsh, but they do not come downstairs or come to the breakfast table unless these prior practices have been finished, being the brushing, the bathroom, and the so forth. As they get older, they know. They know what they need to do. And yes, they do try to trick us. They do try to tell us that they have...
It's children being children.
Exactly, exactly.
This is just to remind our listeners that this is the Art of Living, and today we're discussing responsibility and how to raise responsibility and discipline amongst children from a very young age. You can call us on 24602058. That's 24602058.
All right, back to you. I wanted to get the last part of the BBC. So that's bathroom. If I'm getting my test right, bathroom, breakfast, and clothes.
Basically, okay. Yes. Yeah.
So that's the 3 rules before coming down, before being ready for school or leaving the house. Interesting. So, if I may, we're going to think about maybe it's the best time to talk about the effective steps in raising responsible and disciplined child. Do you have effective steps where you can tell the audience 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? If you start with this, then you have a higher success rate of bringing up a disciplined child.
Just as a reminder, it is a lifelong practice. And yes, number 1 for me was basically having the parents attune to what they need to do to be responsible, to carry on that responsibility for their children or to teach it to their children. Step number 2, my advice was to sit down and really have that dialogue with the children. And I can go back to each one of them separately, but step 3 would be to have family time and family meetings where you do bring in the information that you have put together as a parent, and also the dialogue you have now created with your children, and what you put into that dialogue, and the sentiments, the feelings, the frustrations, and everything else that comes along with it is now brought into step number 3, the family time and family meetings.
Can I just say one thing over here? I just remembered Sheikh Khalfan, and he made sure that he had family time, which was every Friday, where he gathered all members of his family every Friday, without exception. So this is a routine done once a week where they all come together, and he listens from each one of them. And he has kids ranging from little ones, up to graduates, married and with children. And he would listen to each one attentively with their different needs. But they would discuss 3 main values that he already pre-taught them. And they would take it a step further every week. And I think that is something really beautiful and something that is not really well practiced, I must say, in the family. So can you tell us a little bit more about family time?
Absolutely. Family time is a different meaning for all. And depending on your culture, your religion, and just your upbringing, family time is a time, I believe, to create a lot of responsibility. It's the feelings of learning how to create that mutual respect for one another. And great tools that are used for becoming responsible, the communication aspect, making sure that you let them know that everything that you have discussed, let's now communicate it, let's talk about it, and let's talk about it together. Now, sometimes in a family time or family meeting, not every person or child or children want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And my advice there would be, that's okay. Can you please just join in and just sit there and just listen? You do not have to take part in it.
So what would you do if they say, I don't want to come, I don't want to show up today, I don't feel like it?
Then as a parent, I would say, which happens a lot, happens all the time with parents I've worked with, and what I would say to that is, say it's okay. This is what mommy would like for you to do. I would like for you to sit there and listen, and you don't have to say anything. But just so you know that you're present there with your siblings. I think is a huge, is a big factor in itself. You know, and the thing is letting them know that making mistakes is okay. You know,
Absolutely.
children out there need to know that they're children, they're learning, they're growing, and make those mistakes. And the more you do, sometimes the better, because you're just going to learn from it, hopefully.
Some people link discipline to harshness, and this is a misconception, because discipline, you can be full of love, which it should be the way, you know, you should be full of mercy and love to the child, but you should have some sort of firmness in the teachings, because at the end of the day, these are children, and they need you to be firm, because they need to know that you know what you're doing. If they feel like you're kind of hesitant, then they don't even believe what you say, because they're thinking, oh, she doesn't even know what she wants. What do you think?
This is huge as well. You know, discipline, I believe, does have a negative connotation, and you know, there are a number of psychologists, therapists, so forth out there that have, you know, created many different aspects of this disciplining. I first of all do choose carefully the words that I use with our kids or with others, and that is, yes, we are disciplining, but can we change that and revolutionize this entire topic and say, how about we have a positive connection with our children or with the people in our life and the people that we love, and create that positive connection, which also is your discipline, because now you're taking that negative derogatory word sometimes for many people, and you are now saying, I now want to build that connection with my child or with my husband, with my wife, with whomever it is. And now you have changed that.
I did notice that you used the word positive discipline. And do you mean that there's negative discipline as well?
There is negative discipline, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for this show, but there are a number of different areas or facets of this spectrum of discipline where it can vary, where you do have negative discipline, where there are certain individuals who may put upon a lot of harshness and punishment and so forth. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you have discipline in a positive way, which can be a balance of the kindness and the firmness, and also the one can be one extreme and the other can be another extreme, but to find that fine balance.
Yeah. You mentioned that there is no time probably to go deeper into the negative discipline. But if you were to choose one that you think is the harshest of all bad disciplines, or any of those, why? Because when we talk about responsibility and the way people perceive responsibility, the way they would go about it in a very harsh manner, and sometimes even violent.
Absolutely,
manner.
yes.
Yeah. So what is it that, there are few things that might be a little bit sensitive and, controversial. This is considered good or bad. But there are some things that are universally known that that's bad. What would you say that the most negative discipline would be?
Wow.
You are not going to be disciplined for your answer.
Thank you. It's coming from Africa. I have seen a lot of very harsh discipline with many children, and it's heartbreaking to hear and to see and to try to understand where these people come from that are disciplining with this harshness. I believe the abuse, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse, I think they are all equally as bad. The physical abuse, all three of them, for me, are equally harsh, the worst.
Yeah.
You can mentally abuse a child and have them think that you are trying to be somewhat nice about it, but ultimately, at the end result, these children grow up with a lot of psychological issues.
Yeah,
any which way you talk about it, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional.
Even a word can kill a child's personality.
Yeah.
Just throwing that one word to a child can destroy it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think another huge factor is how you speak to your children right now without using negative words and derogatory words, or even commanding your child to go and do something. We all catch ourselves. We all tell our children to go and do this, do that, and not realizing that in itself is a detriment to their mental state of mind.
It's always nice to give them options, or like make it sound like it's their decision when it's really yours.
Yes.
Like, would you like to go to bed now? No, you need to go to bed now.
No, but to be
It ends up
mindful.
on my side.
But to be mindful to say please and thank you and be polite about it.
Yes, of course, yeah. Because at the end of the day, the children copy what you say. So if you say please and thank you to them, then that's it's the role model coming in, which I think you're going to talk about today.
The firm tone, that you use with children is a way to kill any conversation.
That's true.
But also, I think
which we use, to admit that we use it a lot.
We do.
Yeah, we do use it a lot, especially when we come back home, late or tired. Thank you very much for the conversation, but go to bed.
That's true.
And we would be, very vocal about it, and sometimes in a very affirmative tone. You kill the conversation
Right.
immediately.
Right.
But if we go to the importance of having a conversation with children, how important it is in actually, raising awareness of responsibility and having discipline.
Can I just pause before you answer that question and remind our listeners that you can call us on 24602058. That is 24602058. Yeah, so you're asking here about the communication.
Communication and we need to maintain a continuous communication with our children, a dialogue, having a dialogue all the time with children. Is that really key in raising awareness for discipline and responsibility?
I believe it's a part of the key. I mean, there are a number of key points here which we can talk about for many, many hours. But I do believe that dialogue is tremendous, and it will help you, whether it's a child that is a quiet child, a child who loves to talk or doesn't like to talk, or someone who feels like, and especially in a household where you have siblings, where one feels like they don't have the opportunity to talk. This dialogue creates that sense of openness between you and that individual, and also amongst the siblings themselves. So sometimes I will say to my children, you know what, I would like for you to discuss it amongst yourself and come to terms with it, and then let me know. Now, I would do that in the beginning stages, and the older they get, it gets harder and harder to handle these situations. But, the point here is hopefully at some point they can acquire this responsibility to have that mutual respect for that individual. And by all means, I think siblings all love each other, and it's just the nature of growing and having a brother or sister. So, having that dialogue and not using it, I think is more harmful. So please, whoever's listening out there, speak to your children on a regular basis and have a one-on-one conversation with them, and let them know that you care, and that is truly a very important aspect for a child. A child sometimes feels like a parent doesn't love them or like them or favors one child versus another. And in this case, please talk to your children and let them know that you love them and that you are there for them.
I just remembered I attended one of the lectures about children and discipline. Do you have a phone?
No, we're all right.
One of the techniques that the mother learned was to ask the children. She had lots of children. She was complaining to the therapist that, she loses her temper because she has so many kids and they're all loud, and that she ends up yelling at them. And she says, I hate myself when I yell. So I yell at them and I feel better for a second, and then I just feel horrible that I yelled at the kids because it just makes me more angry. So she was asking the therapist what to do, and she said, then gather your children and ask them, what do you want, what do you like to see in your mom, like, to improve? And they would all write down, and they just felt like, wow, this is our chance. So they all picked up their papers and wrote down the points where they want.
Wow. And
And she was surprised to notice that the first point in all of them was, don't yell.
don't yell.
So she felt like this was definitely the one thing that she needs to work on. And she said, okay, next time I yell, just give me a sign, like with your fingers or your face, that Mama, you're starting to yell. And that would remind her. And she said over time, she actually got rid of that bad habit of yelling.
And that's true. And, that's, I think we all as parents, we all are parents here. And I think we all have gone through that.
Oh, yes,
and I
absolutely.
remember many, many times where I have, and still sometimes to this day, I will be honest and tell you that we are all human, and we do have our bad days and our good days. And trying to be cognizant of controlling that discipline or that
yes.
emotion,
Yeah.
and being able to, it's a counter, it's a catch-22. Here we are trying to discipline them
Yeah.
and teaching them the skills needed. However, you yourself as an adult is doing exactly what you've told them to not do.
So I mean, you're saying that even adults need to be disciplined, self-disciplined.
Self-disciplined, and
Yeah.
self-discipline, is hopefully a little easier for us to fix it because we as adults
aware.
want to change and
Yeah.
we are aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to touch into something controversial. Am I allowed to do that?
By all means.
I was going to get into the discipline by hitting. Like, some people think that they're going to, the only way I'm going to do this, I have a rebellious child, and I've tried all sorts of methods, and he's not listening, so I'm going to hit him. And of course, there's spanking, and there's
Spanking.
spanking. That, yeah, I mean, what we do probably is spanking, but some. Yeah, so I was thinking. I mean, first of all, you start with that stare. Okay, so your child does something wrong, and you stare at him. You give him that the mommy look or the daddy look. Like, that's warning number one, and then that moves to a strong word. Like, that's your first warning. Okay, then you better watch out. Yeah, because the other side is coming. And then there's the spanking. Of course, by spanking, I don't mean beating the child up. It's a light spank on the child's hand or something, and that only comes after you have an over disruptive child who's totally ignoring your messages one after another, and you just feel like it's out of control. So what do you think about this? I mean, of course we have rules for smacking. I have rules for smacking. It's never on the
The
face.
best thing to do is just
It's
take
never
out the
harsh.
chocolate and eat it in front of him.
That sounds
that
good.
would- that
I will have
would
to try
hurt.
that next time.
You
That
see
would
this? I'm
really
eating it.
Beautiful. I will try that.
By the way, I'm totally against hitting, just to make it clear, but sometimes I think a small spank does the job. What do you think? You can disagree with me, that's fine.
Yeah, you're free to say whatever you like.
That is one thing that I have never done. And I don't think I can get myself to do that. I'm sorry to say, but
Bring them over to me.
maybe my husband will. It's something that it's not in my ways of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a whole lot I can say to that except for, I think to me the key is the talking and the dialogue. Now, I do believe that if there's a child that has to be given the first warning, the second warning, and then a spanking, or a hit or a light touch or whatever it may be, I think there's something more to that child that is going on and that needs to be understood by the parent. Mm-hmm. And that means if a child is not getting that message across, if he or she is continuing to do that, hitting the brother, the sister, or stealing something, or taking something, or whatever it may be, there's something more internally, mentally going on with a child where maybe he or she feels like they need more attention. They feel like maybe they need to be heard.
Yeah.
Or that they are not being acknowledged, or whatever it may be. There are many, many ways to categorize where that symptom is coming from. And it's really to break it down and say, you know what, I understand why you are reacting this way, or why you are not listening, or why you have this certain behavior.
So the parent needs to be calm in order to be able to do that. I think most of the spanking comes when the parent is upset.
Before being calm, all the things she mentioned now, I need a psychologist, not a parent.
Well, I sometimes feel like you're absolutely right. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting into the psychology role, which I don't want to be. But as a parent, I want to just tag on to what she mentioned. And,
There's something about the child's needs that needs to be addressed.
When you mentioned when a parent gets,
angry.
to a point angry,
Yes.
then, for me, my motto is when I feel like that, stop what I'm doing.
Lock yourself
and
up.
just step back.
Yes.
Step back, pause, take that deep breath and understand, okay, I have 4 or 5 children here. I have 10 children in this room and I'm going crazy. I'm going nuts. What do I do? Okay, take that deep breath, step back, and you have to quickly, and this is the nature of being that parent or that teacher or whoever you are, is to step back and quickly. You have a room of young children who don't know any better.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And it's quick thinking, and it is psychological, and you can get into a lot of conversations based on just that psychology in itself.
And that comment I made in a very positive way, in the sense that being a parent is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
You really need to go into understanding the psychology of children if you want to really use the minds and raise the minds rather than, use physical discipline. You could do it by dialogue, you could do it by using your thinking process and connect with your children, intellectually rather than physically.
Yeah. This is where I wanted to point that actually this is in the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where we get all our teachings from the Quran and from the teachings of the Prophet. And there's a hadith on child discipline of the Prophet Muhammad, bless him, inshallah. He is not, and he says here, he is not of us who does not have mercy on our young children nor honor our elderly. And the hadith books or the seerah mentioned that Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ never hit a child. So if we are actually to follow our religion and the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad, then we are actually not allowed to touch the children or hit them. Nothing said it's forbidden, but the sunnah or the teachings of the Prophet says is not to hit the children.
And there is another hadith as well, another saying of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which is when he saw his cousin who was a little child eating from the plate, and we normally eat in a single plate, five people, for example, from a single dish. And there are some etiquette that you need to observe when you eat that way. So this is little boy, his cousin, was all over the place, putting his hand everywhere. And what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "O son, eat, mention the name of Allah, say Bismillah when you start, and only eat with your right hand from the front of you only. So don't eat from everywhere in the plate. Yeah. So just use your right hand and eat from the portion that is in front of you." A very simple, concise message to the child, and that's it. He left him there. He didn't go to a big lecture. You should eat from your right hand side. You should not use the left. You should eat from the front, not eat from the back. Not eat. It becomes a lecture.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it's better to use less words. Act it out and let the child see that that's what you mean.
Because their attention span is short.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Just to summarize all of this, there's one really big important step I feel like I need to mention, and that is, bringing in the parenting, bringing in the dialogue, bringing in the family time and meetings, is the role play and practicing it all.
Role play?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a lot of fun.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. I remember when I was younger, when the kids were younger, doing this with a number of different individuals. And, when you role play, that child that you think might not be listening, or that child that you think might not be misbehaving in whichever ways and doesn't want to brush his teeth or grab his books and put on his clothes to go to school, all of a sudden now you put themselves as the parent role and you yourself become that child. And you show that parent shows that child, okay, this is how I'm going to behave. I am now this child and he's the parent.
Yeah.
And let them role play. And let them practice to see how that makes them feel. And it may not take the first role play. It may be the second or the third. But, eventually, number one, it makes them feel like they're a part of something that is important. It makes them feel like they are listened to, or that they are heard.
Is it like a game?
It's a game.
Okay.
It's a game. And you literally can do this anywhere, whether it's the family, the classroom, wherever. And, there's a lot of communication that goes on in this, along with life lessons of encouragement and life lessons of just getting to know who your child is by role playing.
So very interesting that just by playing, you're teaching discipline and responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah, playing is one of key methods of learning with children. It is one of the most important aspects of learning when it comes with children.
Yes.
One of your shows last year was on playing, right?
Yes.
In the Modern Family. He was highlighting the importance of play to keep this healthy family environment.
And playing with children, when we mentioned the 5 pillars of serenity that Sheikh Al-Fan, rahimahullah, used to practice one of them was play, and he used to play with everyone. Yeah. So playing is a very powerful tool to engage with others, to win the hearts of others. If you can win the hearts of strangers by playing, you can definitely win the hearts of your children by playing more with them. It doesn't matter what you play, how silly that play is. I think the sillier it is, the more they like, the more fun. Yes, because I think they feel in control. They feel more mature than you. They feel wiser.
Yes, that is true. That is true. And that's a nice way to break the ice. You know, knowing that you have all this structure in a day and everything that you have tried to work out with the kids, that bringing in this play really does.
One of the things I do with children is that, you know, I would tell them, I'm so sleepy, I'm actually asleep, take me to my bed. So they would walk me, and I would just shut my eyes, you know, and one would start walking me, and then all four of them would come, pulling me on every side, and I would start pretending that I'm hitting the walls here and there, and they would just crack out laughing. Yeah, they're trying to help me out at the same time.
When you mentioned mature and, you know, being in a playful with your children, I remember I was being, you know, as you said, you try to be silly, you have fun with your child. So I was being silly in the car and playing with my 6-year-old, and he said, "Mama, I wish you were more sensible and more serious." And I said, "Oh, really?" So I do all of this for him, and then he comes up and he says, "I wish." And I said, "Talal, but come on, I'm being funny." He's like, "Yeah, but you're not serious. You're being." You're childish.
You know, sometimes it takes the other parent. Sometimes it takes the other parent to play that role more so than the one that is disciplining. Because it is hard. It is hard to, like you said, when your child says something like this, to be more sensible, you think to yourself, "Oh gosh, I'm doing all this disciplining and the structure of this and that, and all of a sudden, be more sensible."
Exactly.
Well, sometimes.
I just thought it was really funny. I'm sure the listeners out there have lots of things to discuss because you all have kids. Discipline is something related to everyone. Please do call us on 24602058.
So if you're not asleep, call us 24602058.
So shall we move on to discipline of a little bit of slightly bigger group age? I was thinking of maybe teenagers.
So your son is turned 13 today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to my beautiful son out there. If you're listening, he did officially turn 13 today. Yes.
Okay.
I'm scared.
Now, it's not about experience with teenagers because it's just started being a mother of a teenager. However, I'm sure that you have planned for it. Yeah? You have planned for it and you have read about it. Now, when we talk about discipline, disciplining a teenager or teaching a teenager to be disciplined is much more, I would be much more nervous because of the new hormones starting to kick in, the rebellious, the child in him starting to grow up and becoming a little bit more grumpy. This is very stereotyped, but
no, but it's hormonal. It's natural.
Hormonal.
It's
natural.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yes, absolutely.
My first question would be, have you thought of the first symptoms that this child is moving towards being irresponsible? What would be the symptoms that any parent should look for?
It's interesting you brought that up today because just recently I have noticed that my 13-year-old is withdrawing a little bit, and I don't think he's withdrawing because of being unhappy, but I just think he's learning to find out who he is, what he's about, what he's capable of. And, the biggest thing for me is I have thought about it. It scares me. It terrifies me. But I am confident that I can only do what I feel like I've been doing, and that is continuing that communication and dialogue, which, as we stressed the prior conversation, it's extremely important. And my son and I have had conversations, and he has told me that he feels like, what I have been doing with him has been wonderful and great, and he's happy. So now the question is will that continue? I don't know. I have no idea, but I can only say for myself is to keep talking and communicating and just be there for him more than anything.
Be that friend,
I would be careful about the friend for myself. Because
Why
with
is that?
teenagers, when you are a family, and a family will be hopefully together for
Forever.
life, forever. And so you are unconditionally a friend.
Yeah.
But to say that I am your friend and I'm going to be there for you to do everything with you and for you, and I draw a fine line with that. And honey, if you're listening out there, you are a friend. I love you dearly, but I do have to, as a parent, draw a fine line and say that I have to just be there for him still as that guiding light, as that parent, as the person who he can bounce off questions and just talk about emotions and feelings and whatever it is that he feels like he may not be getting from, whether it's his friends, his peers, whatever education he's learning, whatever it may be.
So beyond friendship.
Yes,
It's
beyond friendship.
beyond friendship.
It's more about who can you be to this individual now, and really more than anything, put yourself not above and beyond him, but to be at that same level and on par with what he may be feeling and going through emotionally, mentally.
Yeah. Continuing the dialogue would always be there. As a parent, you'd always, want to continue the dialogue. But the type of dialogue will have to change because he's shifted now or the child has shifted from being from a certain age group into a totally different age group. And in Islamic teachings, when someone is blessed with a child, there is a prayer that we tell the new parent is that may God make him a blossom for you for the first 7 years. So it's like a blossom for the first 7 years. Just enjoy him, and may God make him a servant for you for the next 7. So from 7 to 14. May then he become your counsel for the next 7, which is from 14 to 21, and then may he become a friend forever. So 21 above, you become friends. Yeah. So it also tells you how you need to talk, what type of conversations, the type of dialogues you talk to the child in these different phases.
Well, just to clarify to the audience, I mean, when you say servant, I hope people don't get some misunderstanding.
Not a slave,
yeah.
not a slave,
Yeah.
but you see, from the age of 7 till 14, you give them responsibilities.
Exactly.
And that's what means servant.
Right, right.
Give them more responsibilities, because that is an age when a child believes that, especially boys, give me something. Give me something to do.
Something also to clarify that is to be accountable for.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because, okay.
Yeah. So between the age of 7 and 14, I think especially during the teens, they would like to feel that they are capable of doing something. And as you said, there is some symptoms of withdrawal. The reason is they try and identify or explore and rediscover themselves again. And I think there is a common theme amongst all teenagers is that they would like to be responsible and they would like to be seen as responsible. They're capable of doing things.
So you mentioned 7 to 14 and then 21 and above are friends.
Yes.
So does that mean from age 14 to 21?
That's a council,
Where's
becoming a council,
council?
like a minister, You ask for opinions, but more, you start shifting that phase from being a servant, giving them responsibilities, to a full-grown adult that you are, not only that they can do it, but you seek advice from them. Yeah? From the age of 14, 21, you really ask them, you know what, I'm thinking of buying a car, but I really can't decide. Can you help me? Yeah, can you do that research for me, please? Which car? I'm torn between these 2, or these 3. Let them think and come back to you.
Yeah, they need to feel like they're needed in the family.
Yes.
And if they don't find that feeling of needing, they will go find it somewhere else outside. And that's why you find this people, this age group, tend to spend a lot of time outside the family.
Yes.
So maybe that's where the fruits of the labor of working as a parent when you were under the age of 14
Yes.
really come into play to see if
Yes.
you have panned out what you have or should have taught to your teenager,
Yes.
and see if it really works. Put it into effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not only a prayer that we say to somebody, but it is something that we need to think deeply about and live it day in, day out.
I was thinking about disciplines of adults. Do adults need to be disciplined? We spoke about children, we spoke about teenagers and youths. What about adults? I think adults need to be disciplined.
of course, we need to be disciplined. But, when you reach adulthood, whether at home, in your personal life, or at work, you need to discipline yourself before you are being disciplined. You must, stop and think and reassess your actions, your behaviors, everything you say, everything you do, before your boss tells you. Because the first time your boss will tell you, he or she will tell you in a very, friendly manner. The second time it will be a little bit less friendlier. Third time it will be very firm, and they'll start getting annoyed.
Actions.
Yeah. So start doing it for yourself before it comes from the outside. And part of disciplining is being, conscious of time.
Mm-hmm. Being responsible.
Being responsible.
And part of responsibility is taking control of your time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was discussing this with my husband the other day, and we were just discussing the simple example of people at work who have the attitude of what's in for me, or why should I run the extra mile, or why should I do this for you? So that the sense of responsibility is lacking. A simple example of walking to the store, and the people who work in the salespeople won't even come up to you and ask you, if you need any help, because they're thinking, I'm going to get my salary at the end of the month anyway, whether I sell this piece to you or not. So that sense of responsibility is absent, and you see this trend almost. It's growing in a scary rate.
Yeah.
So what is the underlying reason for this lack of responsibility attitude that we see in society?
Do you think that this is a lack of not only a lack of, but it's a cultural shift? I look at it as a cultural shift of a number, whether it's culturally, no matter where in the world you go, I find this and I see this everywhere, where people are becoming lazier.
Yeah,
people are becoming more reliable on their gadgets, and lack of communication and a lack of understanding, and it really is becoming a world of just yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We will stop for a minute for a break. So, dear listeners, this is The Art of Living. We'll stop for a minute for the call for prayers, and we'll be back very shortly, inshallah.
Dear listeners, welcome back. I would like to remind you that our lines are open, and we look forward to your calls on 24602058. That's sorry, Wali made me laugh.
You wish no one is calling you. Don't even bother. People are asleep.
Please wake up and call us on 24602058.
See, I told you it's a very laid back, show is very spontaneous. So, she was so scared of coming here. And that went out live.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've never been on radio before, so.
Well, I think you've done brilliantly, so well done on that. So let's talk about adults and disciplining of adults. We're discussing, the attitude that is sweeping, the societies recently, and what are the effective methods. Maybe we can wrap up by saying, what are the effective methods of resolving this issue of lack of responsibility?
I'm listening to the conversations that we're having about adults, and I do feel like that the similar concepts of disciplining adults and disciplining children are really no different. Having that person, that adult, be in charge and being self-disciplined, having their ideas and thoughts of what they need to do to change and so forth. I feel like it's all very similar. To sum it all up, I really feel like, this conversation about responsibility and teaching the different steps or methods or ways is summarizing the life skills, which I can take after this call.
Yeah, we'll do that right after the call. Hello?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you, Dr. Lamia?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Hatem?
I'm still awake. I'm not asleep.
Fantastic. Did my voice wake you up then?
No, I think he just called to to prove me wrong. That's Hatem for you.
I told you.
You saved the day, Hatem.
Alhamdulillah. I think it's a very interesting topic about disciplining kids, and now you're talking about adults.
Yeah.
I think about when it comes to adults, I think every one of us should have a set of values. And these values are more than enough to make you a disciplined person.
Mm-hmm. So understand the values that you have, to come in realization with your values. And
yeah, because everyone has to have a set of values. Otherwise you'll just be like cattle.
True.
You're living a life of total chaos.
That's right.
So if you have the values and you're deriving your values from the right source, which is the divine,
Yes.
yeah, then you will automatically be a disciplined person, because our religion teaches us to be disciplined in everything. Yeah, starting from the prayer, which is the most important thing, till everything else in our life.
You're absolutely right, Hatem, and you just reminded me of a hadith that says by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, each one of you is a guardian and is responsible for what he is entrusted with. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. So everybody has that responsibility, and it's part of our religion.
Very true.
So you're absolutely right. Yes.
Shukran. Thank you very much for this wonderful show.
Thank you very much, Hatem. And another hadith that actually puts the important message that each one of us has a responsibility towards one another and towards the society.
Yeah.
So we need not to live our lives in that little shell where you only think about yourself. In isolation.
Yeah.
The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, the believers with respect to one another are like a building, each one lending support to the whole. So if one part falls, the whole building collapses.
Yeah.
And this is where you feel responsible, because you not only feel responsible about yourself, but also about your society and your surrounding. And if people have that attitude, then we will be more serving and caring to others than we are currently.
Absolutely. So, to summarize today's show, responsibility is a big issue that we are facing. It's a lack of responsibility is a trend that we see in young graduates, in young members of staff, teenagers. We need to resolve. We started the show by talking about resolving this issue from a very young age. And you talked about 4 important aspects to start teaching discipline, which are...
The first one is having the parent or the adult recognize that there needs to be a change and make that change. That's number 1.
Number 2?
Number 2 was having a dialogue, whether it may be with your child, children, parents, educators, whoever is in your life, in your world. Have discussions and have dialogues in a loving way, but also in a firm way. Find that good balance.
Yeah.
The third was to have your family time or family meetings. And be able to share and incorporate everything that each individual is talking about or feeling, and to be able to talk about it together and not feel like you are isolated or that you are not discounted, that you are important.
Okay.
And the fourth was to role play and have fun and make it into a practice and a habit, a good habit. And so, there are a number of life skills that one can learn from all of this. And, a few of the main life skills that, if you follow these steps and these stages, are really how to respect one another from these meetings, the communications and so forth, being held accountable for your mistakes, for themselves as well, and learning to cooperate and be responsible for all those actions and things that you have done throughout, whether it's the morning routine, the dinner routine, the whatever it may be, but to basically learn how to cooperate and be responsible.
Fantastic.
And learning to plan their time out. Learning how to plan their time out and contribute to the family. These are all, there's so many ways that this can really benefit everyone.
Thank you very much, Manisha. That was a fantastic summary to the topic of today. We really enjoyed having you in the studio. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you.
And from me, Lamia Al-Haj.
And Wael Harrasi. Until tomorrow.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.